Welcome everybody to this World Satsanga held on the 26th of October 2019, held in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And again, I always thank Kevin for the wonderful and valuable work he's doing in exposing the greater reality in his own particular way and broadcasting it on his YouTube channel, which is The Moore Show or More Talk. Okay, well thank you Kevin. So let's have a look at the agenda for today's Satsanga. We're going to have a quick talk by myself on what also exists on the earth, what we can't see, which is looking for other incarnate entities of a higher frequency that are also using the earth as their residence. Then we're going to go through a series of questions. There's about 13, I think, maybe 14. Let's have a quick check. From 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 so far. 14 questions we've got from readers and contributors of understanding the greater reality. And then we're going to do a meditation at the end to help you perceive these other higher frequency entities that are not only on the earth but visit the earth as well. And those that are the higher frequency and are incarnate, and obviously higher frequency and disincarnate. Okay, so let's have a look at what else is on the earth right now. We're aware of human beings, okay, and we're aware of other what we would classify as higher intelligence form factors here, body types, such as some of our loved animals. I mean, horses are slightly higher intelligence, although they're still part of the animal soul groups. Same with dogs, and same with cats, of course. And then we have other animals which are also sort of what we classify as being intelligent. But when we look at those that are sentient, we start to look at a different area. Now, obviously, animals have a different level of sentience to us because the quality of their evolution is different. Their soul type is different. That's a result of the amount of sentience and energy that the source bestowed upon them when it was creating all of those different true energetic selves, which are sometimes called Godhead or Oversoul or Higher Self, right at the very start of its creation, the multiverse. So from that perspective, we start to think about sentience as being the primary motive force as to who and what we are. So if we look at the sentience in terms of those that are making it a distinct impression upon the earth and a distinct impression upon what we do around us, and a distinct impression in terms of the higher levels of evolutionary progress or opportunity that we can give on behalf of ourselves to the source and ultimately to the origin, we have to start thinking about those that are of a higher level of sentience and those that are doing things in a progressive way here on earth. So we have the human being. Okay, now we know that right now there's quite a high level of backfill people starting to be here, and they're a different quality of sentience. They're a different evolutionary level, hence they're being very quickly immersed or very quickly attracted to materialistic or low frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions. And they're very selfish as well. It's that more often than not, it's their first time in terms of incarnating on the earth with individualised free will, and so it's very difficult for them to control those urges of being able to do whatever they want, whenever they want to do it, and being very sort of materialistic and very selfish about it. But those who are above that, those who are the true souls that are incarnating in the human form, have a level of sentience which allows them to be more in control of their free will or their ability to do whatever they want when they want to do it. So I really only count the human beings that are of the same quality or genre of soul that initially incarnated as human beings as being one of those incarnate but higher frequency entities that are here on the earth. The second is of course the various different levels of dolphin. Now, although people think that whales are of a higher level of intelligence, they are intelligent, but they're still part of the animal or soul group genre of sentience within their own true energetic selves. So whales don't really count as such. The dolphins are the one that create the level of evolution. Now, although they've got a body which is primarily designed to work in water, very streamlined, very fast, their level of understanding and influence is significant. we don't see what the dolphins do. We think that they just swim around, procreate, talk to each other, create families, create pods of dolphins, numbers of dolphins, and they roam around the sea enjoying themselves. But they also monitor a lot of what's happening on this planet right now. They also create an interface between those other entities who are disincarnate, but assisting us or assisting our guides and helpers to work in this low frequency environment to help maintain it. So the dolphins have an important role to play, because they provide this interface, sometimes with human beings who are in contact with them, but also in terms of projecting thought processes and thought ideas, for instance, conceptions or concepts that allow us to think in slightly different ways. So the dolphins are working as a bit of an interface between the higher frequencies, those entities that are working with the higher frequencies to help maintain the evolutionary efficiency of the Earth and work with the Earth. They also work with the nature spirits, of course, what we call elementals. In the curators, they're just called God's maintenance entities that work on lower frequency environments. And of course, there's not just elementals on the planet Earth, there's other elementals in all sorts of different environments, planetary environments, and other various different low frequency environments that are scattered around the physical universe as well. And obviously within that they are within different galaxies as well. So the dolphins are in contact with other entities doing a similar thing in other planetary locations, for instance, around the particular galaxy that we're part of. They tend to be focused on this particular galaxy, although they can communicate with others in other sort of galactic locations. Not on our particular galaxy, the Milky Way, but other locations. But they tend to focus on this because the Milky Way, as we like to call it, this particular galaxy is in quite a remote area within the physical universe, and where the Earth is in quite a remote area within the galaxy as well. So we start to see a situation where we understand why Earth is quarantined, and why Earth appears to be limited in terms of its visitations from other incarnate civilizations. It's because it's a long way away, both universally and location-wise within the galaxy that we're in. The galaxy that we're in being in quite a remote location within the universe as well. So the dolphins have the second level of sentience that's associated with this particular planet. Now there's a third level, there's a third group of sentient entities that are of a definitely higher frequency. Now if you understand the dolphins have a physical form which is the third frequency level, the gross physical frequency level. But when we look at and that's the same with the human body, by the way. But when we look at the other incarnate entities that work with the Earth, who are higher frequency, they are in the fourth level, and sometimes, depending upon what they're doing, they work it with the fifth level as well. So the question I hear you all saying is why is an incarnate entity at the fourth level working with the fifth level? And what I'm being told here is mainly for communicative purposes. Obviously working with the fifth frequency level is a higher frequency level, and therefore communication between locations or other entities is much more efficient if you're able to use or have a level of technology, for instance, or a metaphysical ability to move your consciousness or your sentience in a focused way to a different level to allow you to communicate. Radio waves are particularly slow. Light is particularly slow as well. So when we think about it, the only way to communicate properly is by using telepathy, or the focus of sentience from one location to the other location, which can happen in an instantaneous way, and is not bogged down by physicality, so to speak. So they use different ways of using the fifth frequency level to transport themselves and also communicate as well. But when they're on Earth, they are they use a humanoid form of sorts, different types. There's different. Now, what I'm going to say here, this civilization isn't limited to one form factor. They have different form factors. There's different entities that come, different incarnate entities of higher frequency that come and exist and observe on the Earth. And so we have those that live below the earth, which are, shall I say, mostly resident here, and we have other entities that also visit the earth that aren't resident here, but also interact with those entities that are resident here. So this is why we have different form factors here. Some of them stay with these as a resident to work with them, to understand what's going on with the earth and what's happening around them, do their own thing, basically. Whereas others are pretty much temporary. They come and observe, sometimes take shall we say, minerals or some forms of power that can be generated from the earth, and using the magnetic field, for instance, to help them recharge whatever systems they're using to move onwards. So the earth is also used as a bit of a, should we say, fueling station as well. In fact, most planets are used as fueling stations for certain levels of technology, and sometimes suns are used as fueling, or stars are used as fueling stations for certain levels of technology. Starburst energy, for those of you who remember the history of God, and I was talking to the aliens, they were saying that starburst energy is used as a means of propulsion, and that basically is the energies associated with the sun during the nuclear process of the sun burning up the physical energies that are there. And of course there's lots of different frequential levels of energy that we don't see, that are also interacting with each other to maintain this particular, should we say, localized hotspot or high frequency spot, by the way. And suns can also be used as a transportation medium, a location where we can move from one frequency to another, because they do deal with very high frequencies, although what we see is just burning energy. Okay, so getting back to these entities here, we have the temporary versions, and there's various different form factors. Some people have seen these forms, greys, whites, sometimes they're reptilioid, sometimes they look like lions, sometimes they look like jellies, or jellyfish, for instance, or humanoid jellyfish, etc. These are different forms of higher frequency body type that are in existence. Some of them are more physical, they're more towards the physical side, they're more towards the gross physical, the third frequency level, than they are the fourth, okay? But in general, they're out of our visual range because they're a higher frequency. The ones that are staying here, on this particular planet, you have a humanoid sort of shape, but they appear to be, you would see through them. If you could see them, you would see through them. You would appear to have lots of energetic lights moving around them. That's the energies moving that their sentience is interacting with, moving around and working and animating that particular form factor they've got, even though it's a higher frequency form factor. Okay, they do still need to interact with the earth on the level that they're interacting with it. So they have to interact with the fourth frequency level earth, this being what Dolores Cannon called the new earth, by the way. The next level of frequency being the new earth. We would still interact with the lower frequency should we desire to do so, but the next level up is the new earth. Okay, and I've done a lecture on this, so if you just go onto the website www.beyondthesource.org and look for World Satsangas, or even look on the page on the website that gives you the list of meditations and list of lectures, which the wonderful lady in Japan has created for us, you can start to see what's there. And also another wonderful lady on the west coast of the States has also done a list of all of the transcriptions of the Satsangas since she's been working on it. So not all of them per se, because they go back to 2012, but there are quite a lot that this lady has worked with the encoded transcriptions for those who are hard of hearing, for instance, but still interested in the information. So you can get all the information from those previous lectures. Everything is there still. I've not removed anything at all from the website, so you can pull everything down from 2012. It's all free, so please do try and download what you want to, take what you want to, broadcast what you want to. All I require is that you indicate where the information came from. Okay, that's anything. Just cite myself. Not that it's my information. It's downloaded from source and downloaded from Byron, from the Arm, and Origin and other entities as well. Okay, so these other entities that live in what we would classify as being below the surface. Now, They do this for a particular reason. They have areas of like a bubble of higher frequency environment that they exist within. If you wanted to call it a location where a city might be located, you could say that. But in essence, what they do is they create an environment within that's at the fourth level frequency, with the ability to communicate on the fifth, etc., that allows them to have an environment they can exist within and work within. And this is what we would classify as being below the surface. Now, they do this for a reason. They do this because if whatever they do isn't interacting with or creating interference with what we're doing on the surface. Now, although it's entirely possible, and most entities of a higher frequency can and do exist in the same space as us, but we just don't detect it. So you can have houses and buildings and roads and vehicles all existing in the same space. So, somebody's house might be full of something else from somebody else's house in a higher frequency. It's just that we can't interact with it because we're focused on this particular frequency. They because of the way they work, they don't want to interfere with or interact with the energies that are maintaining our particular frequency level here on the gross physical level. So they position themselves below the ground so that they're out of the way. Some people call this the hollow earth theory. It's not particularly hollow as such, it's just that there's a bubble of higher frequency that's been created there, or being used, moreover, to provide a location for the housing of habitude, so to speak, for these entities to be in. Again, they're sort of humanoid in shape, although you wouldn't classify them as humanoid when you see them. They appear to be very, what's the best way to describe it? Very mixture between fluidic and gaseous is a way of seeing it, if you could observe them. But and again, you'd start to see little bright points of light, different colours moving in and around the boundary of the form factor that they've taken. Okay. There are individuals who've observed these different incarnate entities. There are individuals who've communicated with them, and they will have presented the idea of them being a different form factor to some of these individuals, because obviously right now we're still not in acceptance of different form factors around the earth. I mean, we can just see the discrimination between the different types of human body that are around the earth, albeit only to do with various different genomes and different types of skin colour. So to understand that we still would have a lot of discrimination when we observe different body types, and a lot of fear created through different body types, although we are being educated through various different mediums, including science fiction books and films and those sorts of things. Okay, and thought processes that that give us the idea that this particular form factor, the human body, is not the definitive form factor that's out there. It is certainly not. Although it's quite a popular one, it's not the definitive form factor that's out there. There are countless, tens, hundreds of thousands of various different types of gross physical form factor that can be used to house the sentience of an aspect. Okay, so in summary, there's the genre of soul associated with the human body, not the backfill people. Okay, there's something else, who are classified as being the major visible side of those who are interacting with the earth. There's the sentience associated with the dolphins, who are acting as an interface and a monitoring system and a guidance system as well for us being here, because obviously we're doing more with the earth than they are, from what we can see from the gross physical. And there's this other group of entities who work within the Earth's frequencies but below the surface, who are a higher frequency. At the fourth frequency level, they can work with the fifth for communication and transportation purposes, but they're just basically using the Earth as a base, basically, to do what they need to do. And also they're quite interested in what we're doing. At the end of the day, the Earth is quite an important experiment in individualized free will, and so all eyes are on us. And right now we're enjoying, if enjoyment is the right word, a level of strangeness in terms of the reality we've created around us. And so they're interested to see how we get ourselves out of it right now. So you might find that the number of potential UFO sightings that we start to observe, or have observed in the past, might start to increase as more of these entities want to get a bit closer to us to understand what's going on and how we're thinking and how we're progressing and how we're going to individually work with that which is being given to us by our governing bodies. Okay, so it's all part of the bigger picture of understanding how the Earth's working. But on top of this, these entities, just because they're here on the Earth doesn't mean they're totally focused on the Earth. They also have their own work to do in terms of experiencing, learning, and evolving. And for those entities that are on the fourth frequency level in this bubble of fourth frequency environment below the surface, making sure they don't interact or interfere with our work here in any way, shape, or form, specifically with the energies, are doing what they're supposed to do, which is being as close to a low frequency environment as possible, where the individuals who are incarnate on this low frequency environment have individualized free will, and they're also doing their own work in terms of what it means for them to be in this location as well. Okay, so it's a little bit about what they look like. I was just asking if there's a name for them, actually, because I've just picked up somebody saying, that's okay, you're giving us a shape and a form and what they're doing. The thing to notice is, by the way, is that although I say work, they work collectively. They're not like us, where we work for ourselves to provide money for ourselves. They work collectively to help the collective civilization. So even though they're separated, as it were, from the major origin point of their civilization, and they position themselves on the Earth, under the Earth, for instance, in this fourth frequency bubble, they work for the benefit of the all. So there's no sort of working to gain money to get a better house or a better location to exist within, or to work in a better location, to have different transportation mediums, or different clothing or jewelry or things that show you're better than somebody else, or status. They don't do that. They just work for the betterment of the whole. So these higher frequency incarnate individuals on the Earth below the surface, they're more of a collective consciousness, collective incarnate position, group of entities, rather than our individualized group of entities, which have got individualized free will. They have group will, so to speak. Okay, so that's the bit about the those entities, and I still haven't given you a name, have I? Let's see if we can find out this name. I'm being told that the closest thing that is associated with a name that they give themselves is the Gratan. 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 Gra apostrophe tan. And it's not specifically a name associated with a... They are right. They call themselves the Gratan because they are the tan, and they are the Gra part of it is an indication of them being a group that are existing in a different location. So there's different types of tan. There's other groups that call themselves something else, tan, for instance. But these are the Gratan because they exist here, and they call themselves the Gra, but part of tan. So that they're the Gra, part of the civilization of Tan. Okay, well, I hope that helps. So let's have a look at these questions. I've got some questions from OM in Japan and JM on the far Western Hemisphere. OM is in almost the far Eastern Hemisphere. So we've got potentially they're close to each other if you think about the Pacific being in the way. That's interesting, isn't it? So let's have a look at these questions. So the first question is this. Since a tiny area with trees and grass next to my apartment were cut and paved, I noticed a drop in frequencies and some changes in the area. It seemed that the level of pollution increased, people became careless about their environment, and other plants around the area started to struggle. Would you talk about the importance of any size-wise area of nature and how they are supporting our lives? Also, can we support nature energy-wise? The way humans treat nature these days really breaks my heart. I can understand that, yes, and we do need to have areas of our garden that are, for want of a better word, wild. Because although we tend to like to formalise our garden, cut the grass, put certain plants in there, make sure there's no weeds around, that sort of stuff. Actually, this reduces the way in which insects, who are also part of the environment, as it were, and the maintenance of the environment, and they work with the nature spirits or the elementals, can function. So really, every time we stop some level of functionality of nature, it does reduce the frequency of the area. So it's, even having if you live in a block of flats, have flowers or plants in your house, or have a good sort of flower box or garden outside the window. Any additional nature, so to speak, within a metropolis area or city area or area that's been built up by mankind helps in some way, albeit small, to re-establish the environmental condition. So if you cut a tree down, put two or three small ones there, okay? Because trees maintain the integrity of the earth. If we don't have trees there, we have deserts, and very little grows in deserts, and very little is able to support the maintenance of the atmosphere from a desert perspective. So everything we do, we have to make sure that we replace it or do better than replace it. So in real terms, we need to make sure that everything we do helps to counteract that which we're doing. Okay? So whatever you do, if you see something, if you want to be an environmental vigilante, for instance, where you see people going onto roundabouts on motorways and putting plants down or minor trees, do so. It's not, I'm not advocating. I won't be responsible for you getting into trouble with the local governments, for instance. But nobody stops people building up and making what's a functional area into a nice, beautiful area by planting bushes and trees and shrubs and flowers. Okay. So that's the way. And nature, energy-wise, just think loving thoughts towards nature. When you see the sea, for instance, or you see a forest or a number of trees or some area which is like you feel it's ancient, just send it love and appreciation. That makes a big difference. So that answers the second part, really. Does sending love and healing energies to lands which are polluted with pesticides and insecticides help the land to detox and recover faster? And the answer is yes, it does. You can visualize them being detoxed. You can visualize them being healthy. You can visualize them flourishing and growing and providing a wonderful area for insects and plants, other plants and other animals, small animals like mice and rats and voles and birds, flourishing because they're eating the produce of these small areas. So see it, know it, and believe and know it. And feel the energies associated with what you're giving them. When you're seeing a particular plant or something, or a tree or a forest, just send it a love and just feel that you're washing it. You're sucking up with a vacuum cleaner all that pollution that's around, whether it's pollution through man-made pollution or other normal pollution that happens in the atmosphere, because a lot of pollution happens naturally on the earth. Not just, especially carbon pollution, not just created by mankind. So just think of any pollution that affects the way in which a forest works properly, or a river, depollution of a river, with the things that mankind puts in there. Because even if an animal dies and falls into a river, that's pollution. So you have to think of it in terms of the holistic process of helping to remove the pollution of a certain environment, and just see it and know it's going to happen. If you doubt it, it won't. So you have to see it and feel it and know what you're doing is making a difference. And that's how you'll help them recover, by sending them energy. But moreover, just visualize a place. Okay, visualize a place that you want to send energy to, and you can use a mantra if you want to. Say, I'm sending healing energy to such and such. I'm sending healing energy to such and such. And just see that energy going from you to that area and invigorating it. And that's the way. Next question is, my friends in general are struggling with the drop in frequencies, especially this year. Yep, it's gone down a lot this year, much further than I expected as well. And I expected it to turn around, and it still hasn't. I can see the bottom, but we're going to be into next year now. And that's because we're helping to accelerate the drop. and the depth of which we're dropping. You can see around the earth what's going on all over the earth. So just think positive. Okay. So they're saying that they have told me that they're trying very hard to stay positive, but some thoughts come back into their minds and bother them. One of them, in brackets, who practiced meditation for many years, said that he feels like he's dragged down during meditation. So a number of us are talking about forming a group to meditate together. Would you give us some tips on how to create a successful group meditation? First thing is get together. When you get together and you can share what you're experiencing together, and you know what's happening because somebody's told you, for instance myself, or any other individual who's sensitive enough to tell you that the frequencies are dropping, and that's affecting everybody. There's nobody exempt, okay? It affects everybody. And the way to counteract it is to get together, those of like mind, good company, keep good company. Even Paramahansa Yogananda used to say this: keep good company. Surround yourselves with like-minded people. That's what negative people do. They maintain their negativity by surrounding themselves by like-minded negative people. But you can counteract that by surrounding yourselves with like-minded positive people. And just create an environment where you meditate together. But what I would suggest you do is you create a focus for that meditation. So rather than just meditating in a blank way, in a neutral way, if you want to meditate on invigorating the individuals within the group, meditate on pulling energy from source into the group and distributing the energy from source into the group to the individuals within the group, and that will help as well. That'll help boost your energies, and also opening your chakras every day, either all together as one or individually, one after each other. It also helps you to create a focus on higher frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions by exposing your gross physical aspects to higher frequencies, and exposing your sentience to higher frequencies above and beyond those of the gross physical as well. And also you can focus on, within the meditation group, providing higher frequencies or healing for different environments or different people as well. And that helps as well. Every time you think about or work with anything that's higher frequency, know that you're making a difference. Know that you're contributing towards the work that Source wants us to do, which is to look after ourselves, look after our environment, and perpetuate the environment for other souls or aspects who are going to incarnate later. That's it. That's the best way to do it. And look, also, one of the things you can do, very physically this is, you can sit there for half an hour or so, or even 20 minutes, and just chant Om. Just go Om, Om. Obviously, at the end of the Om, if you stagger it so that each of you is drawing breath at a different time, then the base resonant frequency of the multiverse, which is Om, okay, and it also permeates and sort of all of Source and all of us, and therefore all of the origin, is maintained. So if you're all breathing and chanting Om together, you stop. So what you should do is individualize your Om so that there's always Om being broadcast via the vocal cords, and that way if you all breathe at different times, then the Om is always there. That's another excellent way of sending energy out, okay, and building your own energies up. Next and last question from OM is, if backfill people have a soul of half animal, half human. Well, that's not quite right. They're more than animal, but they're less than human because of their sentience and their genre. But I suppose that's a reasonable way of describing it. How could they be careless about nature? Doesn't half animal part help them to remember the importance of keeping the balance and love of nature? How can we help them realise and remember that we are all part of our environment and that we're all part of a greater God? When an individual, irrespective of whether they're backfill or not, is immersed in their incarnation, it's like they're experiencing a dream which they think is the reality. Yeah, we live in an illusion. We exist in an illusion. All of incarnation is an illusion. It's just that we choose to make it a reality. We choose to accept it as being what we are. So we turn illusion into reality. And we do that in dreams. I mean, how many of you had a dream where you're convinced, because you don't question it, that you're interacting with various individuals in a various environments, even though it might be a bit bizarre. You interact with it because you're immersed in it. Some people do wake up in dreams and they think, I'm awake now, I'm aware. This isn't what I am. This is a dream. Okay, and you can start to manipulate the dream. Well, think of it this way: if you can wake up in a dream and start to manipulate it, then you can wake up in the next level of illusion, which is the incarnation, and start to manipulate it. And that's what becoming self-aware is. The problem is that when you're so immersed in it, doesn't matter how good you are, you can't wake up from this particular illusion because we make it a reality. When a dream becomes a reality, we don't wake up from it. Obviously, at some point, the physical body does wake up because it's regenerated and recovered, and therefore we do wake up naturally. Or it needs food, for instance, we wake up naturally. So for the time and period in which we immerse ourselves in that dream becomes our reality. The illusion of the dream becomes the reality. The illusion of the incarnation becomes the reality when we create it as a reality, when we accept it, and we don't question it, and we don't see beyond it. And so when we're at a lower frequency, and we immerse ourselves into our incarnation, or we're a lower level of sentience, or a different genre of sentience, we naturally gravitate towards lower frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions. And as a result of that, we have more difficulty of moving ourselves out of it. So really and truly, we can't force somebody to wake up. We can create ideas, or we can plant thoughts in their minds, or show them how to live. But this has to be done in a remote way, not in an example way, rather than a direct instructional way. So the only way we can help these people is by being us and showing and illustrating a better way to live, better way to think, behave and act, rather than actually sitting down and educating them, because that'll be rejected. So if you surround them enough by high frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions, eventually they will have their own frequencies raised through triangulation. And so we get this instance where a low frequency individual can start to have high frequency thoughts and start to have a eureka moment, or an aha moment, or a self-realization moment. Sometimes it's very momentary, but it gives them that chance to, all of a sudden the door's been opened and they've looked inside to the other room and go, and then the door's closed and they go, okay, there is something else. Then they can start to work with it. So basically, leading by example is the best way forward. You can't educate people if they are totally immersed in their illusion and they've made that illusion reality. The only thing you can do is to illustrate through what you're doing and how you're doing it that the illusion is an illusion and it's not a reality. Okay, good questions. Now we've got questions from JM, who is focusing on the history of God, and JM is very good at this actually. In fact, it makes me ask questions again. There's also questions from the Beyond the Source books as well. So thank you very much, because this book is doing rather well actually in terms of being sold. It's now in an audio version as well, by the way. There's an audio CD and there's an MP3 audio as well, which can be ordered via Amazon or my publishers, Ozark Mountain Publishing. And I'm expecting at some point the books to be available as well in the audio form. They're certainly being translated into different languages such as Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, Latvian, I think also other languages as well, such as, I'm not sure, I won't quote any just in case I get it wrong. But basically there's Spanish is a major language, Chinese is a major language, Japanese is a major language, and there's other languages as well which are also being looked at as well, including Latvian. Okay, so let's have a look. From the history of God, you could negate the inconvenience that decrepitude offers and instead command your body to stay like that of a teenager for 500 plus years, or until you feel that you've experienced all that you planned to experience in the physical before returning to spirit. The question is, wow, do you know anybody who is actually doing this? Is it even possible? I don't know anybody who's doing it. To want to stay in the physical is again part of our immersion in thinking that we're physical. So it's a double-edged sword basically. If we want to maintain our form, a gross physical form, there's an attraction to the low frequencies that want to maintain it. Babaji is still here, still providing instruction from a covert location somewhere around the world. Has a number of followers who are also with him, and he certainly has the ability to materialize a form that appears to be, I wouldn't say young male, shall I say, in size and shape and form factor and age, simply because he understands, or that soul understands, or that aspect understands how to manipulate the energies. So one has to become self-aware or self-enlightened before one can manipulate the environment around themselves, including their human form. There are still individuals in remote locations around the world, such as the Himalayas, still, which is wonderful to know, and other individuals who are in other locations within forested areas that are still available around the world, but not many. These low frequencies seem to have attracted a lot of individuals, including so-called spiritual people. So it's very difficult. So it is possible, but it needs a lot of focus and a lot of disassociation from the very attractive city lights of the material world. Okay. But having said that, though, I mean, every time I hurt myself, for instance, if I do something stupid like bang my head, which is quite easy to do when one doesn't have any hair, bang your head on something, I simply ignore the pain. It goes away instantaneously. And so I know that I can repair the body fast, and I know that I can ignore the pain and it goes away, turn it off. And so that's another function of this, where I'm ignoring the physical response to the environment created through my banging my head somewhere. So anything where you get a pain or an injury, just say it doesn't exist in your reality, because actually this is an illusion, isn't it? If you make the pain and you make the longevity of your body part of the illusion, and you accept it as part of reality, then it'll stay as part of reality. But if you finally accept that it's illusion and you can manipulate the illusion, then you'll be able to manipulate the longevity of your vehicle, should you desire to do so, and should it be appropriate to do so and beneficial to do so from the evolution perspective. Okay, next question. From the history of God, there are energies that are only available to those incarnate entities that are pure of heart. Of these, there are but a handful currently on earth. And the question is, why so few? I assume that there are many of us who are pure of heart, or does it refer to some state that I can't conceive of? It's basically talking about the higher frequencies. If you can think of frequency and energy and frequency go hand in hand, and there are some energies that are only available with certain frequencies, and there are some frequencies that are only manifest with certain energies. But frequency is the building block of energy, because energy is like the functional manifestation of frequency interacting with certain aspects of the wider environment, which in this instance is the multiversal environment, which is of course part of the source. And so a higher frequency allows access to higher energies. So if you think of it in terms of those entities that are incarnate on the earth, that are the fourth level frequency, that are existing below the earth in their fourth frequency bubble, they will have access to energies that we haven't got access to because they're on a higher frequency level. And so if we are pure and we are no longer immersed in our illusion, that we understand what the illusion is and we can work with it, then we are naturally a higher frequency. And if we're naturally a higher frequency, we're not attracted to, shall I say, any low frequency thought, behaviour and action that's associated with existing in the physical environment. And so based upon that, if you're not attracted to it, you're divorced from it, you detach yourself from it. When you detach yourself from it, you're able to move your frequencies higher and perceive and work with and experience higher frequencies, and therefore the energies associated with them. So, being Christened or purified, okay, is another way of divorcing ourselves from the lower frequencies of the gross physical, and allowing ourselves to be higher frequency, and also accessing these other energies. Opening the chakras does this, by the way, and the traversing the frequencies work does it, as does Kriya Yoga, and the Hung Saw technique as well, from Kriya Yoga. So really, just think of it in these terms. If we're immersed in our incarnation, we're not going to be able to work properly with the frequencies associated with those higher than our incarnate vehicle. If we don't accept the illusion that we're in, then it fails to become a reality, and we can start to manipulate that illusion, and therefore we'll be able to access the frequencies, because we'll be a higher frequency, and therefore the energy is associated with a higher frequency. Okay, well, I hope that helps. Being purified is being able to effectively detach ourselves from the immersion of an illusion, and therefore disassociate ourselves from the illusion, and therefore eradicate the reality created by ourselves. Okay. Number 3, from the history of God. But consider this: the opportunity to greatly advance the human race is at the fingertips of every man, woman and child on the planet. Can you explain on this wonderful statement, particularly the fingertips reference? Does it sound actually doable? By the fingertips, it means it's close by. Everything is close by. It's just that we choose to ignore it. So if we all decide collectively or in groups, to work with ourselves in a higher frequency way, being of service to others, being of service to the environment, being of service to our temples, our body, so to speak, that we incarnate into, and work in a higher frequency way, we would be able to access higher frequency knowledge, higher frequency aspects of the environment. And this would greatly affect the human race, because we'd understand, we would all understand that we're only here on a temporary basis, and that we are basically sentience and energy occupying a vehicle in a temporary way, and the whole point of being here is to be able to interact with it and divorce ourselves from the immersion or the reality that we create through the interaction with an illusion. So once we can do that, then we'd be able to advance the human race phenomenally. Once we all start to do this, and we have to grow, it goes from 1 to 2 to 4 to 6, and then we start to group together, and the triangulation starts to work. We start to create this so-called critical mass, which is the critical mass isn't having like 10% of the population creates the ability to jump us up to the next level. It's about an acceleration of triangulation. That's what critical mass means, not a knife edge change upwards. We will still move up the frequencies in a slow way, but the faster we start to get this triangulation working, the faster we start to affect everybody else around us, the faster they affect everybody else. And so we start to go from a slow and gradual movement up the frequencies to a more logarithmic and dramatic experiential change. And that's what it's all about. We have the capability to do it. It's just that most people choose not to. So it's doable, but provided we all look at ourselves again and realise that, what we think is important in the material world isn't really important at all. You can still enjoy it once you realise that it's just a transient thing, and it isn't actually going to give you any joy. But but if you treat it as an experience, then that's fine. Okay. Next question. In the history of God, nature spirits aligned with the trees and forests are disappointed with the human race for destroying most of the forests and their disregard for nature in general. Are forests aware of humans as a group or of humans individually? Are other sets of plants, flowers, grasses, etc. and animals also aware of us and are they disappointed in us as well? Trees are aware of us, forests are aware of us. They're a group sentience. They're like a true energetic self that is associated with genres of plant life, so to speak, whether it's trees, bushes, shrubs, smaller plants, etc. And on a certain level of sentience, they are aware of us, and they understand that they are struggling against us. But also think of it in this term. If you have a forest that's full of oak trees, then the population of the number of oak trees creates a different level of sentience and awareness, or intelligence, if you want to call it that. If you reduce that level of forestation by cutting down some of the oaks, you reduce the level of sentience. That's equivalent to starting to reduce the awareness, and the trees would eventually know that they're becoming less aware. But eventually you get to the point where there's that many trees disappeared that they stop to have this level of awareness. So it's a bit like a human brain. We think the human brain is who and what we are, and if we take chunks of the human brain out, we start to lose the ability to control the body, to think, to perceive, to interact, to perpetuate the natural functions of the body that perpetuate its existence. We slowly start to fall asleep. Okay, so it's a similar sort of thing. You start to reduce the level of ability of the sentience to proliferate, and you start to lose that sentience as well. So they do understand, but on a different level. They understand that they are being affected by us, but they don't have the ability to change that. But they are aware that they're losing their sentience, so to speak, their interaction with the physical through the proliferation of their form in the physical. Okay, they understand that they're losing it, but they can't do anything about it. Next question. The history of God. Indeed, nature is part of the source entity, me or God, and is therefore everywhere in all the galaxies, in all the universes, in all time. Thus, what we do here on Earth has an effect throughout the universe. Does how we treat or maybe mistreat nature here actually affect other nature on other planets close to Earth, millions of light years away? In what way? Well, with the trees, for example, they are connected together by an energetic network, not just with the gross physically of what they are, but also with their genre and the sentience of what they are, because there are oak trees, for example, of various different types around the Earth, and therefore there are oak trees of various different forms on different planets around the galaxy and around the universe. So there's what we call a genre of tree is available in various different types or manifestations in other locations around the galaxy and the universe, and they're connected because there will be a true energetic self or a larger group of sentience and energy that is of that level of evolution, and so it'll be connected not only with those that are on the Earth but other areas that it's also distributed its sentience and energy to experience, learn and evolve in this way in different locations. So what we do here does get passed on to other locations. So a tree, for instance, on the Earth is able to communicate with a tree, for instance, in another planet, in another part of the galaxy, if it's connected to very quickly, if it's connected to a true energetic self of the same type. So if it's the same true energetic self, very quickly they can communicate to each other. But also those true energetic selves communicate with each other as well. So one true energetic self of a tree genre, for instance, could communicate with another true energetic self of another tree genre, and so information gets passed on from genre to genre, from planet to planet, from galaxy to galaxy, by the true energetic selves, through the communication with how those parts of them that are projected into, or their aspects, into the various different trees or genre of trees on different locations, and how they're experiencing things. So the information gets passed around, yes. Okay. So question 6. In the history of God, the aliens state, we also still make some genetic modifications to make your physical vehicle live longer, so your ability to experience more things is enhanced. therefore assisting in your ability to evolve faster? Are these genetic modifications made to everybody, to select a few, or to those of us who are spiritually minded? What is the nature of the genetic modifications? In essence, it's a global thing. There's various different ways of doing this, through water, for instance, through our foodstuffs, for example, and through direct genetic manipulation. Hence, some individuals agreeing to be abducted when they are incarnate in the human form on Earth, and the manipulation to their genome is affected, and usually it's affected in a way which is passed on. Sometimes it's not specifically available to them in their incarnation, but if they procreate, for instance, and they have children, then that modification is passed on to their children. So what I'm seeing here is it's not normal for the individual who's experiencing the adoption or is experiencing the modification to, in effect, take benefit from that modification instantaneously, because that needs to be a downstream function later. And it's the human body per se. It's even the human body that backfill people use. So it doesn't matter what it is. It's any of the human bodies or any of the human forms that are here now. And so, it's not a case of we're only going to specify these individuals in this area, or this type of individual, or this type of individual is thinking in this way. The human body is a vehicle. They're just seeding different areas to see what happens and how it works. And what they're doing is they're creating a condition where the parts of the body that start to have a longevity. My late wife Anne used to work in something called cell apoptosis, which is programmed cell death, where the cell reproduces a number of times and then dies off. So it's extending that and changing it and stopping the ability for the shall we say the reproduction process, creating errors. So they're working on stopping the reproduction process being so short, and they're extending the reproduction process, and they're changing the way in which errors can be created. So they're trying to stop the errors creeping in when a cell, for instance, has reproduced a certain number of times. Okay, so that's what they're doing. And it's being done in a number of different ways: foodstuffs, environmental conditions, and through direct genetic manipulation. But generally, it's passed down rather than being activated in a human form. Those people who live a long time now will have probably had their parents' genome manipulated previously, or their sort of parents' for instance. Next question. Right, you yourself have doubts, as do others who are in similar evolutionary level. The source sensitively told you this as you were writing the history of God. This from the worship's role in religion. Is this still true, or have you progressed beyond all doubt? Well, the answer to that is there's not so much doubts, it's concerns. With the drop in frequencies, that affects everybody. Without doubt, that affects everybody. And the way it affects us is it allows the ego to sneak in and take more control. And so the association with the human form starts to become more dominant. Okay? And when that happens, we start to lose this association with ourselves as being a higher frequency individual who's just simply using the human form to experience, learn and evolve. Now, I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But there are times when the ego sneaks in and there's a little bit of concern about the transition between the gross physical back into the energetic. So that's what's happening with the lack of frequencies, the drop in frequencies. The moment I get back into working on the work, for instance, or working on a book, or being in a group of individuals in a workshop, that disappears. So it's about staying in good company. When we're surrounding ourselves with high frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions of other individuals, we feed each other, we support each other, we help each other grow. And in doing this, we stop each other dropping down the frequencies. And it doesn't matter who and what you are, it doesn't matter whether you're Jesus or Yogananda or the Buddha. In this particular epoch or era of the earth, there is a lot of emphasis on low frequency thought, behaviours and actions. One could say that Satan is trying to take over, although there's no such thing as Satan per se. We know that Lucifer was this individual who decided not to advise the group of entities who are working with producing the human form and the use of individualized free will, that we could slip down the frequencies. They were only projected the possibility of soaring up the frequencies, and this is still on the agenda. We still will sort the frequencies, but not quite yet, because we need to sort of come out the other side yet. But these lower frequencies do start to niggle away at people, and it creates despair, anxiety, doubt, worry, concern, rejection. This can't possibly be true because I already experienced it by now. So it affects our progress because we start to become impatient. And so, yes, I'm affected a little bit, but that's eradicated when I start to do the work. So right now, not a problem. It's just that when we experience extended periods of low frequency thoughts, behaviours and actions by individuals around us, for example, we do start to be affected by it. But the only thing that we all worry about is the transition from the physical to back into the energetic, and the way in which we might demise. Well, I know that my demise, the gross physical body demise, is simply by me feeling tired after being in the garden and lying down on the couch, and I'm gone. So I understand that. I know the timing associated with it. So anything else I experience shouldn't concern me or worry me, and I appreciate that as well. So if I was to really answer the question properly, the level of doubt is significantly less, but the low frequencies are affecting me, which creates a little bit of doubt. But that little bit of doubt is also an issue. So we're all working on ourselves. I'm working on myself, and even advanced yogis have to work on themselves in this particular environment. But when I work on this work, and I'm doing this work right now, and I'm doing the books, for instance, and I'm doing workshops, the doubt disappears and goes to zero. It doesn't exist. Okay, right. Good question. Next question, Brait, and the last three questions now before we start meditation. In the wonderful History of God chapter on forgiveness, the Source entity states everybody deserves to be forgiven of their minor misdemeanors, no matter how personal they may seem to the individual. Minor misdemeanors, I can't even say the word properly. Minor misdemeanors limits the scope of forgiveness. Why are major things not referenced? Major things are things we focus on as being potentially forgivable. We miss the little things. Throw in the sweet wrapper out the car window. Throw in the cigarette on the ground. Smoking, in fact. Being annoyed at somebody. Showing disrespect. Little things we miss. And actually the Source thinks that what we think as being big misdemeanors are actually minor. So we have to think of it in terms of not that somebody's really annoyed us or somebody's really affected us in some way, hurt us in some way. We have to think about what level that hurt is, and will it affect us in 100 years' time? And if the answer is, well, we think it's big now, but actually it's nothing, then we can forgive them, and that becomes a minor misdemeanor and therefore nothingness. And also think that major misdemeanors are born from minor misdemeanors that are inflated or amplified by the need to express one's anger. If we can just live with the minor misdemeanors and not express anger and just accept them for what they are, then they stay minor and they become nothing. So therefore we can be forgiven for our minor misdemeanors, because the minor misdemeanors can become big misdemeanors. So the moment we forgive them, they fail to become major. Okay, but we focus on the major because they affect us more. So we have to be careful how we do these things. So this is why major things aren't referenced, because most major things come from minor things. How many of us have had major arguments with somebody that could have been stopped if we chose to ignore the route in which a conversation was going and be an acceptance of maybe we're wrong? Think of it that way. Next question. In Beyond the Source 1, the source states that while discussing the roles of galaxies, stars and planets, I held my most precious creations back until I was satisfied that the environment had achieved a minimum level of structure before introducing you to it. Are we indeed God's most precious creations? What kind of hierarchy does this imply? Are there lower level creations, plants, nature, spirits, animals, etc.? Why are we most precious? We are most precious because we're part of the source. Everything is part of source, but the most precious nomenclature refers to its sentience. So we are individualized units of sentience, and the structure is source, true energetic self, aspect, shard. That's the structure. The precious creation is the individualization of source, entity, sentience and energy to create autonomous, individualized units to interact with it in an environment that is created to experience, learn and evolve. When that creation of separation of sentience was created, the source wasn't particularly paying attention, to put it mildly, and so different levels of sentience were associated with energies. So that's why we get the human level of sentience, or genre of sentience, we get the backfill level of sentience, we get the animal level of sentience, we get the plant level of sentience, we get the mineral level of sentience. All of them are precious because it's sentience, source, entity, sentience. And don't forget that the source is an individualization of origin sentience. So you can see how precious we are. And that's why we are the most precious, because we are individualized sentience of the source, which is individualized from origin. And the last question. Per the source, the Earth currently supports 3 types of entities, plus the visitors which are there of over 20 types. It seems like this is a rich subject area for another book. The various types of visitors, who they are, where they come from, why are they here, how long do they typically visit, and how they work with us. How can we work with them, whether they come in based on events such as 9/11, or whether they assume human forms and merge into our societies, or whether they intervene in our lives to help and guide us. Perhaps I've already asked this question, in which case can you ignore it? Actually, we talked about this a little bit in the question at the start. But yes, I've just finished, as it happens, you all know that Curators is now published. I have a copy on my shelf, I can see it right here now. And I've just finished the healing book called Psycho-Spiritual Healing, which is right now in the USPS Postal Service on its way to Ozark Mountain Publishing. And I'm rather hoping that they're going to accelerate its publication, because I don't feel that they have a book on healing in their library of authors. I don't know. I might be being a bit egotistical there, but we'll see. I think they're bound to have something, but they certainly won't have anything on the lines of what I've just written. So the next book, next 4 books are going to be, one's based upon the one's based upon the origin again, Beyond the Origin, and one's based upon the religious content, about how different religions were started and born and how they interact and interlinked with my information. And the last one is about Antichrists and what their role and responsibilities are whilst they're incarnated on the earth. But right now I think I'm being drawn towards the book. I need to re-establish the contact with the source and the origin to understand that. Right now I'm in a bit of a rest period, so to speak. But certainly I'm aware that there's a need, because it's come from a number of different angles, to ask the origin about these different civilizations of other incarnate vehicles that visit the Earth, and where they come from, what they do. And that might be part of the book called Beyond the Origin, which is a bit more about the origin and a bit more about Source Entity 12, believe it or not. So that's going to be another book that's going to be there. So whether that's going to be the next book, or whether it be the one after the next book, I'll need to understand myself. But it will be talked about, because there's a lot of individuals are asking me about it, and I think it's important we can put it as a good chapter in that book. Okay, well, thank you for the questions. And now we're an hour and 10 minutes, which is it's ended up being longer than I expected. So let's go into this final part of the Satsanga, which is meditating on perceiving other incarnate entities at a higher frequency. So as usual, if you've got the chance, sit in a straight-backed chair. We can sit down cross-legged if you wanted to, or in a lotus if you've got that level of flexibility still. Okay. Put your hands palm uppermost on your upper thighs. Close your eyes, focus your closed eye vision on the location of the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to just make sure your back is straight as well. Feet flat on the ground. Now, those of you who worked on the Traversing the Frequencies workshop will know that you can lift your frequencies by opening your chakras one by one, or all together as one. So I'm going to send a link to the part of the website that gives you the audio and the PDF files in terms of instruction of how to open your chakras. Because that would help. That would help to amplify the work we're going to do now. It's not necessary for this particular meditation, but it would help to amplify your position, your frequential position, and your receptivity. Okay. The audio and the PDF file is not professionally created, but it is effective, very effective. The professionally created methods of opening the chakras are within the Traversing the Frequencies workshops, the correspondence courses, and the Psychic Shield correspondence course, which are obviously, there's a fee associated with those, but these two links are free, and it gives you the same benefits. So just think of yourself as higher frequency, or before you start off this particular meditation, access the audio and the PDF file to raise your frequencies up to the 7th level. Those of you who worked with me before, either in the workshops or opened your chakras before, just visualize that they're all opening together and that you're on the 7th frequency level. This just helps you in becoming a higher frequency. Now I want you to use your mind's eye, okay, and you might find that the area of your spiritual or third eye is starting to tingle or have an intensity of pressure there. This means that you're using your third eye to use your mind's eye, so to speak. Just scan the area around you. Being on the 7th level, you'll pick up entities, whether they're incarnate or disincarnate, on the 7th level, 6th level, 5th level, 4th level, and of course the gross physical 3rd level. So I'm not asking you to look at any particular areas and say, oh, that entity's on the 4th level, that entity's on the 7th level. Just see if you can pick up entities around you. With your closed eye vision, just look around your environment. What's in your room? What do they look like? If there's nothing in your room, what's outside of your room? What's in the garden of where you are? What's in the street of where you are? The suburb? What's in and around the houses or the buildings of your location? What's in the sky of your location? Don't expect anything. Don't preconceive anything. Don't have any doubt. Just look. Use your spiritual or third eye as your vision. Just look around with your mind's eye. This will make your spiritual or third eye work. By looking around the garden that might be associated with your house or your building, the street, around the other buildings in the area, whether they're other houses if you're in a suburb, or other blocks of buildings if you're in a city, or other farmhouses if you're in the country, for instance, or other dwellings. Just look around. What do you see? Look in the sky. What do you see? Right now, where I am, which is not far from the Bristol Channel in the UK. In fact, it's about 6 minutes walk away. There's a huge vehicle. I was going to say parked in the water, but it looks like you'd look like it was floating. But obviously there's some water displacement there, but it's only frequential displacement, so we don't see the displacement of water from a gross physical perspective. I'm being told it's been there for 25 years. Other ships pass through it because it's a different frequency level. It's a 7th frequency level vehicle. It's the size of a city. I hadn't noticed this. Only because I'm looking for it, can I find it? If I use my third eye or my spiritual vision all of the time, I think I'll be a little bit distracted. I'm not able to work in this third frequency level environment correctly. Let's have a look around. What else do we see? Seeing entities taking samples from the beach. Seeing a craft move across from the north of where I am, moving across, sorry, not north, from the west of where I am, moving across to the east. I can see another entity, almost octopoid in nature, higher frequency, moving around, observing and working with various detecting equipment which has been left here to gather information and what we do to enjoy ourselves, and why do we need to enjoy ourselves. Just open your heart and your mind and your spiritual eye and just see what comes into your mind's eye. Don't block anything, don't preconceive, Don't think that you're inventing it or imagining it. Just allow what's there to pop into your mind. If you start to question it too much, you start to lose that frequency level and you start to drop down because doubt comes into your mind. It's at these times when I'm perceiving this information and these images and having these communications that there is no doubt. Everything is real. Gross physicality is simply a momentary point in my existence. It's a momentary point in your existence. It's simply the dream. The Aborigines have got it exactly right. This is the dream time, the illusion time. We should listen to them more. Just look around. You don't need to move your head, just change your focus. If you're upstairs in your building, go downstairs with your vision. Go to a place you haven't been to before. Go to a place you have been to before and see what's going on. In fact, if you go to a place you have been for, it's a good datum point because you can go there instantaneously. What's there? If an entity or incarnate entity springs into your mind's eye or vision, you can ask it questions. What's it doing here? How long has it been here? Where does it come from? There is such a lot going on. The earth is full. Just moved over to a deserted area, a desert, and seen that even the deserts are fully occupied with temporary locations, temporary building structures, which can be disassembled by turning off a computer program. All it's doing is reassembling molecules of a certain frequency, creating a whole infrastructure. And the entities work with the infrastructure, and when they need to, they just move away from the location or the volume of space that's being used and turn it off, and the infrastructure just dissolves. Can be roads and buildings and the electricity within the buildings and from our perspective would be water and pipes and cables. Communications. The sky is full of craft. From the 7th level, the sky is full of craft. Right the way down to the 3rd level. Those of a different level pass through and don't interfere with those of a different level. So those of a 7th level would pass through those of a 6th level. Those of a 6th level would pass through those of the 5th, etc., etc. Everything exists concurrently in the same space without interfering with each other, even though those entities, I should say, that are based on Earth in this 4th frequency environment, don't want to interact with us or come above the surface because they are quite close to the gross physical. The 4th frequency level is quite close to the 3rd frequency level. So although things appear to be invisible, non-tactile, we can with very minimal amount of work, start to perceive them. So you can practice this whenever you want to. Just let your spiritual eye or your mental vision just wander around your location. Spread its vision out further, and you'll start to see or perceive what's going on around us. So wherever you are, slowly come back into the room that you're in, back into your body. Slowly open your eyes and come back into the room. And if you have some water, take a drink of water or other non-alcoholic beverage, drink that. Help to ground you. And that's the end of this Satsanga. Please do practice this technique as often as possible, and write down what you experience as well. You'll be surprised. You can start to connect with certain entities on a regular basis, but check to make sure that they are sort of benign and not particularly interested in having some fun with you, because sometimes they can have some fun with you as well. Okay, so it's the end of this Satsanga on the 26th of October 2019. The next Satsanga is on the end of November, which is, let's have a look, the end of November is going to be, where are we? It's going to be on the 30th of November. Okay, and I'll send out the normal blogs and emails and suggestions as to what the next one's going to be on. Okay, God's love to you all. The Source is love to you all. Don't forget you are one with the Source, and the Source is one with you, and you are the Source. And I look forward to working with you next time. Namaste. Did you see the aliens in Crete?